great. So it says, oops,
I guess I better pull up the chat so I can see it, huh?
If you want to, sometimes that can be very distracting. I'm just going to
For
forewarn.
sure.
But you can definitely pull that up.
And you won't even know what Celeste and I are laughing at anyways, because we just direct message each other.
We just do
I
private
know.
chat. So if people start laughing, we won't even know what we're laughing at. And it's usually nothing even to do with the podcast. It's just
so random.
Yeah.
like Taco Bell or something, stuff like that.
Uh-oh. You got Christina on there. You didn't warn me about her.
Yeah, Christina's
oh, we're
gonna
bringing
be-
out the big guns tonight.
Yeah. She is all about helping us because of the topic. Hello.
I'll just how about that?
Christina's our bread and butter.
Turn up your can you turn up your mic again, Christina?
Better? Is this
I think you just got to get a little closer.
Maybe you got to get closer to your
You know
mic.
what? I'll just have to.
Let's see your nostrils.
Oh, there she went.
Uh-oh.
She got too close. She turned off the camera.
You hit
Yes.
the wrong button.
No, because I'm trying to like reposition it. This is
Oh,
better.
okay.
Okay.
All right, fantastic. Well, let's get started for tonight. As people slowly trickle in, how it always happens on this podcast. For those joining us here for the first time in Zoom, thank you and welcome. We're happy to have you. If you have not done so yet, please join our Facebook page and give us a subscription on YouTube. Help us join the channel. For those joining us on Facebook, we're happy to have you. Don't forget to subscribe to YouTube. We're happy to have you either way. But tonight, I am hosting along with the wonderful Terry Wilson, who is the admin of LDS Singles 35 and Wiser. Celeste, who is with us every other time and is fantastic as another host. She does all the admin stuff here on this podcast. Many of you have probably already talked with her about that. She does a great job for us. And then Christina, this is an important topic tonight that we'll be discussing, toxic people. Christina is our licensed, trained, professional life coach that we have on the podcast to help us kind of sift through what to do when it comes to a toxic relationship. So we are super happy to have everybody on tonight, and especially Josh, our main guest for tonight. Happy to get to know him a little better. We know him because he's been on here several times, but tonight we're going to really get to know him and discuss some important topics. So again, to everybody joining us for the first time, welcome. Give us a like on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and we will go ahead and get this show started. So, Josh, welcome.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Good.
Good. You nervous?
A little bit.
Good. Well, let's crank it up a notch then and get you really nervous. So,
Okay.
if there's anything I like, it's watching Josh squirm. That's always a good time here on the podcast. So, Josh, you're living in Wyoming right now, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I am in Laramie, Wyoming.
Laramie, Wyoming. And what do you do for work?
So I'm an accountant or project manager for what's called Manufacturing Works, kind of like a business consultant for manufacturers in the state of Wyoming.
Okay. So is that what you went to school for, business? Or?
Yeah, I have a bachelor's in business administration and also an emphasis in hospitality management. And I also speak Spanish. So I'm multi-talented when it comes to business stuff.
Okay. Speaking Spanish, is that like from your mission? Is that?
Yeah, so I served in Puerto Rico from 98 to 2000.
Okay.
And I've used it actually throughout my career. Everywhere I've gone, I've actually used my Spanish. I am still fluent. So I can read, write, and speak it all.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I'm always envious of people who take their opportunities from their mission, the languages that they learned, and put them to good use. I never did that. I kind of wish I had, but I don't know. Day's not over yet, so maybe someday, but just dabbled here and there.
Well, I'm originally from Idaho, so when I got home, I worked at a potato warehouse, and half of the workers were Hispanic. So I didn't tell them I knew Spanish until a week in, and then they said something, and I replied in Spanish, and it went dead quiet.
That's awesome. You could have been kept as an undercover person and knew what was going on behind the scenes. They would never have known.
Yeah. So
That's awesome. So you're originally from Blackfoot, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Close to lava.
Close to lava. And we love that you pronounce the word correctly now. We have trained you well. It is not lava. I have no idea where that rumor started, but it is lava. So awesome. Well, tell us a little bit more about you. Obviously, you were married before. How long were you married?
Almost 18 years. 2 weeks shy of 18 years.
Okay. And how long have you been single?
Well, we separated prior to the divorce, so it's been about 18 months.
Okay. All right, great. And how long has everything been official? So how long, in other words, have you been back out on the dating scene, so to speak?
The official divorce date was June 1st last year, so we're coming up on the 1 year mark.
Coming up on the 1 year mark. Okay. And how's it been being back out in the dating world again after 18 years?
So it's been interesting. So a few months after the divorce, I actually dated a girl from Paraguay that only spoke Spanish, so I know I'm fluent still.
Good.
And that just didn't work out. And then for a few months, I didn't do much. I kind of got into a little bit of depression and started some counseling and stuff. So it's been a little bit of a roller coaster, I guess, the last part of the year and the first couple months of the year, and then things have changed drastically since then.
Okay. Describe roller coaster for us.
Now you're gonna get personal.
Usually that's some highs and then some lows mixed in. So
yeah, so I have 5 daughters, ages 17, 15, 13, 10, and 8. So 2 in elementary, 1 in middle school, and 2 in high school. And I don't get to see my 2 oldest 2. They have refused to come visit. So that's kind of been a down and caused some depression and other things. But I've got some great friends that have helped me through a ton of things. I actually want to thank you, Everett, because in January when I found this podcast, I was probably at one of the lowest points. And I can't remember who was talking, but something was mentioned on there and it really helped me out. And that's why I've been so active on the podcast, I think.
So it's not just to learn how to say lava correctly. There's some other.
No.
Okay.
And there's a number of the people on this podcast that I've actually met personally when I went to Lava Hot Springs for a retreat. So there's a lot of connections on here, and that's what I do for work is I network people for businesses. And so a lot of people, like Heidi mentioned on Sunday's podcast, that, she met so-and-so because Josh introduced them or whatever. So I don't just network at work. I do it on the off time as well.
Great. So I guess really the main question that I have is, with 5 daughters, when you were married, where did you go to the bathroom, man? That must have been a nightmare fighting for that thing.
Well, we lived in several houses over the years, and I always ended up finishing an extra bathroom in every house we lived in. And the last house, when we were all together and a few years ago, we actually had 4 bathrooms. So I had my own bathroom, and there was a double sink in most of the others. So each of the girls had pretty much their own sink.
Nice.
So you had to kind of build out to accommodate, is what you're saying. Right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Or become really good friends with the neighbors.
Oh gosh, that's always handy.
Yeah. Well, sometimes when my daughters are going, I don't have as many girls as you do, but there is a handy little boys bush out in the backyard, kind of away from everything.
Yeah. So I'll add on, Everett, I also had a foster daughter. So I had 6 daughters actually at one time.
Oh, wow. So foster daughter, how did that come about?
So when we lived in Jerome, Idaho, and I was an assistant manager for Walmart, she was the neighbor girl and she babysat for us. Her mom was divorced and she had 3 brothers. So she was the only girl. And where we had girls, she would come over quite often. And it started out that her mom got a job and she would come one day during the weekend to stay with us. And then she'd go to somebody else's house. Well, she got to where she was rotating houses every single night of the weekend, and she was getting burned out. And one night she broke down with my wife and I and said what was going on. And we said, you live right across the street, basically. Why don't you just come here every weekend and not house hop anymore? And so it started out as just a Friday, Saturday, and she'd go home Sunday night. Well, it started turning into Thursday night and then Wednesday night. And her and her mom did not get along as she had a falling out. So one night her mom actually kicked her out of the truck, threw her stuff on the lawn and said, I'm done with you. And we pretty much
How old was she at that point?
She was 14 and a half.
Oh, stop.
Wow.
So yeah. So I've raised a teenager already once. My little ones, my oldest is 17 and she's 27, 28 now. So there was a 10-year difference. And so yeah, we had her clear up till she went to college. I took her up to BYU Idaho for her first semester of college. And then she filled out papers to go on a mission. And we had moved to Rock Springs at that time. Well, she had to get some other things in order. So she came and lived in Rock Springs with us actually for 6 months. And we helped her prep. She was called to the Ukraine mission.
Yeah.
And she went up. Yep. So she learned a pretty tough language, but about 6 months into it, she got a knee injury, and she'd had some in high school with track and whatnot. And so she came home early, was released honorably, but made some decisions because of the situation with her mother and other things in Idaho. She got a boyfriend and moved in with him, but then she got married and she has a little 2-year-old girl now. So technically, I guess you could say I'm a grandfather.
Aw,
Congratulations.
that's awesome.
But just that's why this topic probably is kind of important to us tonight, is I know what it's like to give that unconditional love to somebody that isn't loved.
Absolutely.
So
now you still have pretty good contact with her, right? You guys are still in touch.
yeah, she talks to my other girls via Snapchat all the time, and I talk to her every now and then. When I was in Idaho for spring break, we met in Pocatello and had breakfast with her husband, her and Madison, her little girl. So, and her little girl's 2 years old. She's 40 inches tall.
Oh,
So
wow.
she's going to be a tall one, but all of my girls will be taller than I am. And I'm 5'11", almost 6 foot.
Wow. You got some tall girls then. How tall was your ex?
6'1".
Wait, your ex-wife was taller than you?
Yep. And when she put on heels,
I know. If Corey was on here right now, he'd
be like,
"That's
how
my
did
dream."
you do that?
Yeah, Corey, I don't know what it is. That's his thing. He likes really tall women. So
yeah. She played on the last team that played at Rick's College. So she was a post. And that's how we met, was our ward. My housing and her housing were in the same ward. So we were in the same ward as how we met.
Okay. Wow, interesting. So you're just going back to your foster daughter a little bit. Did you do any like sort of adoption or anything, or?
No, we just call her our foster daughter because we just kind of took her in for those 5.5, 6 years. And
Gotcha.
her mother was our friend for quite some time, and she had a falling out until her daughter got married, and then she acted like nothing had ever happened. It was just weird.
So are they on good terms now then? And
I think they are on better terms now. I haven't talked to her biological mom in a long time, but.
okay. Well, kudos to you for stepping up and doing that. I mean, that's sort of like the blind side, kind of thing. That's awesome. That's just good love showing for people who are desperately in need. And when you have an opportunity to step up and kind of be a family where they desperately need one. So the interesting thing is you may not even understand how that kindness and generosity that you showed to her at that time will actually impact generations. So gave her an opportunity to go on a mission, and she's in a marriage now, has her daughter. Things might have turned out much, much differently had you not been there. So very awesome.
Yeah, there was a lot of abuse from her father and brothers. And so I learned a lot of patience, because there was days I wanted to punch their lights out, but
Yeah, I don't understand that when people just disregard their own kids.
yeah.
I can't imagine. My kids are way too precious for me, but everybody has their own journey and their own path. And I don't understand that portion of it, but that's not my battle to fight, I guess. So
Yeah.
How about your daughters? It sounds like they're pretty close with your foster daughter then.
Yeah. Like I said, she was their babysitter, and so they grew up with her a lot. They saw her all through her high school years, and they supported her in her sports. They would go do activities with her. She'd go on family vacations and everywhere else with us. So she was kind of like a second mom, and I think that helped my wife out at the time a lot with having 5. You only have 2 hands, and I worked for Walmart most of that time, so I wasn't always able to go on all those little trips. So she had an extra set of hands with her.
Great. You sound like somebody that's really just kind of, been sort of a dad to a lot of people who needed a dad. You've kind of had that soft spot in your heart, which is even more difficult considering the situation that you kind of find yourself in now with your own children and things like that, which we can get to in a little while. But you're a good guy. From the times that we have interacted, you're a good guy. Even if you can't properly pronounce lava on your own, you're still a good guy. So
I'm working on it.
Great. So your current situation is you're in a relationship, right?
Yep.
How's that going?
Very good.
Yes. How long have you been in a relationship?
So we met on Super Bowl Sunday, and there was some things that just prevented us from ever just hooking up to go on a date. And so it was about 6 weeks later, and some things happened, which is all about timing. So the Lord has different timing. And my boss asked me to go to the town that she lived in. And I'm like, well, I'm going to take advantage of this. So I sent a message and asked her if she'd like to go to lunch. And so our first date was only an hour and a half. And we met at a restaurant. So we kind of joked that I don't know if you guys know who Colin Ray is, but he's got a song called One Boy, One Girl.
Yep.
And it says he waited impatiently downtown at a restaurant. That literally is our first date.
Oh,
Wow.
that's a great song.
So
nice. You should sing it to us, Josh.
Yes.
That'd be great.
Right, gosh, do it. Solo time.
I am not a singer, but she is an incredible singer. She actually got a degree in some of that. So she sent me a few of her songs, and they're just incredible. So
Wow. And how did you guys meet?
On the LDS Singles 31 Plus. I think we had just saw something on there and, comment like we've talked about on a post or something. And we started messaging. And then from there, it just has gone up. I've lost track of how many dates we've been on now. So.
But she lives locally there, so this isn't a long distance relationship. You guys are close by.
Yeah,
right?
She's 2 hours away.
2 hours. Okay.
So I don't know where the cutoff on long distance is, Celeste.
I think if you can get there in 2 hours, you're good. You're all right.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I have to just point out that whenever it brought that up, your face kind of like lit up and you got this big old smile. So that's awesome. You can see that you're happy.
Yes, thank you.
Terry's just a little bummed that it wasn't on 35 and Wiser that you met. Like that 31.
So true.
Hey,
Yeah.
but me and Everett met on 31 and Wiser, so
31 and Wiser?
35 and
Well, we were on both
Imposters.
sites. Terry, we were on both sites, the 31 and the 35. So I don't remember which one it was.
At the time they were
Oh.
Well,
both
let me go
35.
look really quick because now I'm curious.
At the time they were both 35, so I think.
Yeah.
So
Okay, wait. When was this? Was it February? Is what you're saying, right?
oh, she's
Yeah.
looking it up.
Oh, now we got to find out for sure.
You're gonna find it
I'm
out.
nailing this tonight. We're gonna find out tonight. Was my group or the other one?
No way. If you're both on both groups, how would you know? Because you probably reached out. I'm guessing you reached out to her like through direct message, right? Or something like that. You just send her a message like, hey, I think you're cute, yada, 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 all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would have to look on my messenger to see what started the whole conversation, but
Do you remember what post it was?
I don't.
Found it.
You know, she probably does. She's probably got a screenshot of it in her photos, like in her favorites or something. But the guy,
Oh,
I
it's
don't
my
know.
group. It's my
Yeah, there you go.
group. Boom.
There it is.
The real question is, how many people have been married off of Terry's group?
That's right.
Gloria.
You know what? I can't even count. There's a lot. In fact, we had one admin, Holly. She got married in April.
Oh, very cool.
So there's been a lot, and it goes in spurts. It's like a spring and fall and winter.
Well, that's what they said at
Really?
Ricks College, you know, a ring by
Right.
spring or your money back.
A ring by spring.
What?
Oh my gosh.
That's awesome. I've never heard that. That's great. A ring by spring.
To be
Or your money back. That's what they
Yeah.
used to joke at Ricks College.
Man. Well, great. Okay, so is she taller than you?
No, she is not taller than me. She's actually about 5'6", so she comes right here. So perfect
Okay.
height.
There you go. Perfect.
I actually think 5'6" is a perfect height as well. So good job. I like
Celeste
that.
might know a thing or two about 5'6" people.
That's true. I might have a
I know
little.
nothing. I'm 6'2".
I'm 5'3", so I don't know. I wear
I'm really 62 inches.
I was gonna say Terry's not
62
6'2". There's no way.
Nope.
I think she's shorter than you are, Christina. How tall are you? 5'2"?
I'm
I am. I'm 5'2". You're what? 5'3"?
I'm 5'3". Okay.
Yeah, I'm barely pushing just past 5'2".
You're about the same height as my little sister then.
Perfect. Is she 10?
Okay,
No,
so
she's 36, I think, this year.
I'm totally
Okay.
going to be grammar police, and I know this is probably not the time nor place, but it's actually height with a T on the end. It's not a TH. Just so y'all know.
Who
Us
said
people
height?
in Texas speak properly, and so it's height. The T.
Oh,
Not a
wow.
T.
Here comes the hoity-toity.
I'm
All
just
right.
saying.
Yeah.
So is
Man.
that like lava?
Height.
Wait, how do you say it? Lava?
Height.
Or lava? Lava?
Yeah, it's not loud. It's
We
lava.
should say lava just to drive Celeste crazy.
Right.
Actually, the lava doesn't bother me. It bothers Everett.
Oh, okay. Then it's height.
Height.
Yeah.
It's height.
I can't even say it.
Yeah. When I told Celeste at first, what did I tell you? I was 5'6" or 5'7" or something.
5'7".
Oh, yeah. Your daughter was freaking out like, what?
Well, no,
Yeah.
I actually knew his height, but I had told
Oh.
Hannah though he was 5'7", and she was like, "Mom, what are you gonna do? He can't be that short. No, wait, Mom, what?" She was like, freaking, "What are you gonna do, Mom?"
I love it when I tell people I'm 62 inches and they hear 6'2". And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Okay. So awesome. Josh, congratulations on being in a relationship. It sounds like things are going good. If it's been since Super Bowl Sunday, that's what now, like 3 months? Thereabouts, a little over?
March, April. Yeah, it'll be basically 4 months into May here, whatever.
Now in BYU Idaho terms, I mean, you guys are getting a little stale. Are you kind of going down the right roads? You know what I mean?
Yes, it is getting very serious. So,
Okay. All right.
Oh, you're on Mormon Standard Time. Good job, Josh.
This is so cool.
Yeah. Well, congratulations. That's great. So it sounds like things are going good, at least on that front. We'll kind of talk about this a little bit and then transition into kind of toxic relationships and toxic people, which kind of brings up, the need for Christina on here to set us all straight and tell us how crazy we really are and what we need to be doing, because she is the professional. Where are things at right now with your kids? How is that going?
So I see my younger three pretty much every weekend but one weekend, and then they come out for dinners on Thursdays, and the weekend that I don't have them, they come Tuesday and Thursday. I have 50-50 custody of all 5, but the 2 older choose not to come. There's a lot of different circumstances there, and so we're going back to court right now because she's trying to take custody of the younger 3, full custody, and I don't understand why, but I just have to go through the motions and trust the Lord that he's gonna prevail in whatever's gonna happen, because I've learned that the more I fight it, the worse it gets.
Now, did you guys have a pretty solid relationship when you guys were married for 18 years, or did you fight a lot during that time?
We did for the first, like, I would say like the first 16. The last 2 years got really bad, and that's when I was under a lot of pressure with work at Walmart. I was running a $94 million store, and I had 400 employees and working, you can imagine what kind of hours, and it's 24/7. You don't even get Christmas off as a store manager. You basically are still monitoring the store. You leave at 9 o'clock on Christmas Eve, and you're back at 6 a.m. or 5 a.m. the day after Christmas. So.
Wow.
That's brutal.
So it was just stress related or like lack of time together, you think? Is that?
Yeah, I think it was stress related. And then there was a lot of changes at Walmart, and they actually let me go. And that, I think, kind of escalated a lot of things. I was able to get the job I have now, like within 6 weeks after that, but it caused a lot of financial strains, even though I'd made really good money at Walmart. Like, it was over 6 figures. So with my bonuses and stuff, but the divorce took care of that.
So I'm trying to understand, though. I mean, you guys have a great relationship for 16 years. And then the last 2 years, the stress and everything, was that all there was to it? I mean,
there's a lot.
Like, okay, no counseling, I'm just done here, sort of thing.
We did do some counseling. That was the latter part of it. But there was other things that I don't know what I can say because of court right now. But we'll just say that she steered away from the gospel, and there was a lot of things that kind of caused a lot of other headaches. So you can imagine. So.
Yeah, I've been there myself. So, yep, absolutely. I understand how that goes with an ex. Is she active currently?
I don't think so.
Okay. That's a hard thing, especially in the church when you've got 2 people who are active and one kind of decides to leave. I mean, have you ever seen that old movie, The Singles Ward?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I'm convinced whoever wrote that movie, the script for the movie, was divorced, because some of the things that happen in there, while it's kind of comical and it's got a lot of little church kind of nuances and stuff, and it's funny, but it just is like, yep, I totally know exactly how that feels. Like, the way they wrote it, it's almost like they've walked that path, you know? And sometimes that's really hard to do if you've never been there, you don't understand those things. So, and you remember at the beginning, his wife basically is like, oh, I'm done, I'm leaving the church, checking out, bye, and just, that's it. So It's hard when the church is involved and one person wants to be active, the other person just like, I'm just kind of going a different direction. That really puts a strain on marriages.
Yeah, and it's affected my older 2 daughters because they were in seminary and now they're not attending seminary anymore. And she just won't communicate to me the things that need to be communicated because she'll only do it through what's called the Family Wizard app. She hasn't talked to me on the phone for probably over a year for anything with the girls. And it's like, I need that communication to be able to help my daughters with whatever's going on. And my second daughter's starting to come around a little. Like, I'm a cowboy, so I have a horse, and she's asked to come out and ride the horse a couple of times, and she has a boyfriend. And so she brought her boyfriend out and introduced him to me. And so hopefully they're going to come maybe tomorrow if the weather permits. It's been really rainy here, so it's been hard to go out and do that.
So how often do you see your youngest then? The youngest ones that will actually come see you?
Like I said, they usually come out every Thursday. They're here first, third, and fourth weekends. And then on the second week of the month, they're out here Tuesday and Thursday. So it's at least every couple of days I get to see them a little, but I kind of gave up a little of my visitation with them so that they could have Monday through Friday at school and not have to have that juggle in between. And now she's fighting to just take it all. And I'm like, why? I don't understand the other side, but it just goes to show me that Satan is real. When they get a hold of somebody, somebody that you were with for 18 years can just totally turn and go the opposite direction on you and feel like you're not worth being in their lives.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I mean, that's sort of how divorces go quite a bit.
Yeah.
It's like when it's done, for some reason, I've kind of always felt like that old saying from Joseph Smith, when you're enlightened by the gospel, you kind of leave neutral ground forever. So when you leave, it's like you can't just leave and be basic, you've got to it's like you leave and then you're bitter, you fight against it. And I sort of feel like marriage is the same way. Celeste, it looked like you're gonna say something.
I was going to say something, but you're good. You can continue with what you're saying. But no, I was just going to go back to your kids because I think that obviously that the Lord has a soft spot for these kids that find themselves in a situation where one parent's going one way and one parent's going another. And I think that sometimes, of course, if we're the parent that's trying to hold on to the gospel, we worry about our kids and where they're going to end up. But I have no doubt that even if their path is not the path we would choose for them, and if they do leave the church or if they find themselves wandering down different paths, in my heart, I just think Christ is aware of them. And at the end, he's gonna be so full of grace for the situation that someone else's choices kind of put into their life. Like the situation, well, now I've got to choose between my mom and my dad's path, and which is the easier one. They usually go the one with least resistance. And so I don't know. I just try to have hope that Christ is just so full of grace for these poor kids that find themselves in those situations.
Yeah, and I've had a lot of people tell me that just be patient, that when they've seen this happen with other people, that years down the road, those kids come back and resent the other parent for what happened. And I don't want them to resent her, but I think they'll understand more as time goes on, especially the older two, as they, move out of the house and start going to college and stuff. They'll start thinking more. And I think my oldest is already starting to think that, just from a couple tidbits the counselor that she goes to told me. So all I can do is just wait and pray that she does.
Yep. You just need to be the beacon. And if some point, even if it's not even in this life, if it's in millennium or wherever, where they are able to see more clearly or understand more clearly, they will be able to look back and see the light that you tried to show them. So
yeah,
I just wish they would be like my 8-year-old. She'll be 9 this year, but she sat down one day. She's like, Dad, I love you both. I don't know why the others can't just love you.
yeah.
And
it's hard when you're both you're wanting to be, have an open relationship and be kind and stuff. That's what I'm getting from you, at least. And the other half of the equation is not wanting to be amicable. It's obviously the greatest benefit for the kids to have that open communication and respect for each other, even if there are still hurt feelings or bitterness or pain, whatever that can come along with an 18-year marriage and a divorce. If both people are able to put that aside and just be kind for the kids' sake, they would be so much better off. But sometimes it's hard to do that. So
now correct me if I'm wrong, Christina, but everything I've heard on this subject, and even my counselor that I go to from time to time still has mentioned this, but when you've got kids, especially the younger they are, when they hear somebody speaking ill of the other parent, they don't internalize that as like, okay, daddy's bad or mommy's bad. They hear that about them, right? Like,
Yep,
so
you're right.
yeah, that's where I think, so my ex kind of has this problem from time to time where I hear stuff from my kids, and I've told them, like, look, mommy might say some bad things about daddy, that's fine, but you'll never hear that from me. So your job is to love your mom and do everything she tells you to do and be good to her. And
Right.
I just have to go. Sorry, Christine. Go
No,
ahead.
you're fine. You're fine. I didn't mean to cut you off. But I think for us as parents, there is going to be that positive impact when there's reassurance, towards our kids that it's not their fault. Because kids will tend to blame themselves, like, why didn't I say yes to daddy or to mommy, or why didn't I do certain things that, as parents, you wouldn't really be thinking of, that our kids are starting to blame themselves. And especially if they are exposed to situations where the parents are fighting, the blame is not about who started it, or did mommy start it, or did daddy start. It's all about, like, what did I do that they started, that the fight started. And so I think this is one of the things that I learned when I went through my divorce. I knew the value of having, as hard as it was, I learned the value of, like, the father figure and what the roles are for each parents. And so it was so hard to not talk ill towards the other person, but there is wisdom and there is power when you're able to kind of control the emotions, because a divorce is, again, it's a roller coaster. One day you're feeling good, the next day you're just as scrappy. But when we learn the importance of the roles, then kids tend to thrive, and kids are very resilient. We have to give them credit for what they go through when they witness separation or divorce with their parents.
I agree.
Yeah.
One thing that I was told by my therapist when she was trying to explain this thing where kids do blame themselves, is she she explained that it's because kids, if they blame themselves, then there's a sense of control. Well, if I did something wrong, then maybe I can do something to fix it. Right. So instead of playing helpless, like, oh, I can't do anything, that feels really horrible to sit back and be like, I can't do anything about this situation. So instead, they find something they can blame themselves for so that they can then, okay, well, I was a bad girl. I made a bad choice. So maybe if I can change what I'm doing, then everything will be okay. It just gives the kids a sense of control, even though they really have zero control. It's never their faults. And so it's a sad thing. And then, when they're older, they have to, go through therapy and things trying to work that stuff out. So it's just really tough on these poor kids.
Right.
Yeah, so as explained to me is your kid is 50-50 of each parent. So when a parent talks bad about the other parent, they said, well, if that parent's bad, then I must be part bad, or I'm half bad because I'm half that parent.
Yep.
And there's so many things I'm sure Christina's read. I've read, I don't know how many articles about what happens to children's brain and development when there's not both roles present. There can be a permanent change, they say, developmentally for girls, especially without fathers.
That'd be me.
So
Yep. I know all about that. And I know the challenges with me and my siblings growing up without a father, and the challenges that came from a horrific divorce that was drug out for a couple years. I mean, it's horrible. I think since I experienced that and I seen the effects that come from something like that, I've made it like my mission, even if I have hurt feelings or if I'm bitter or angry or whatever, like I'm just going to have to push that aside because I need to do what's best for my kids. I have to make sure they have their father in their life, and I have to make sure that they see that we're being kind to each other so that they don't find themselves trying to blame themselves, which they do anyway. But Like, I just want to make sure I'm going to give them the best chance that I can, despite the crappy situation that they're in. So
Yeah, it's interesting when you go through something like that, you become an advocate for that, because I've done the same. Like, there's probably a number of people on this podcast and on Facebook that have reached out to me, and I just listen to them or talk to them and give them advice. And, I've talked to some women, hey, I've got some sons, I don't know what to do, or, I'm dating somebody and don't know what to think, and I'm pretty good at reading people. I've learned some things. I have a buddy that used to do profiling for the government, so kind of like a Corey, but I've learned about mannerisms, and I can look at somebody's Facebook page and tell a little about them and say, hey, there's some red flags there that I'm seeing just from pictures. And so I've had people do that, say, hey, can you look at his profile and tell me what you think? And I'll just give them an honest opinion. And I've got one friend that she's reached out several times when she started to date somebody. And she's like, how do you do that? Like, how do you look at someone's picture? And because I was dead on a lot of things. And I'm like, it's just the way people look. I'm really good at like eyes. I look at people's eyes. I really believe that the eyes are the window to a soul. And if you look at somebody's eyes long enough or at a picture long enough, you can tell what's going on, whether you know them or not. Most of these people I don't know, but
okay, you need to stay off of my Facebook page. That's all. I don't know what you're going to come up with, so don't go looking
No,
around.
I'm gonna sign up for this. And you
It's interesting though that you should say that. So here, I live in Vancouver, Washington, right across from Portland. Basically, it's a stone throw from Portland. I'm probably, or as a crow flies, I'm 10 miles from downtown. But we actually have like our own mission kind of just right here for whatever reason. I don't know why we're not part of the Portland mission. And a while ago, we had an interim mission president. And I remember going to like a priesthood leadership meeting, and he was talking, and he was telling us a story about when he was trying to get his temple recommend renewed. And he was meeting with President Eyring. And I guess it was in Salt Lake, I want to say. Either that or President Eyring was here visiting him. And so he's talking with President Eyring, and President Eyring's busy doing stuff, and he's kind of like, hey, walk with me a little bit because I got some things going on and we're busy. And they're just chit-chatting. And then after a little bit, President Eyring's like, okay, wait, why did we need to meet again? Like, he was just busy and totally forgot. This guy is like, well, I need to get my temple recommend renewed. And he goes, it was the weirdest thing because President Eyring just stopped. He didn't say anything. And he just stared into his eyes for like a minute. And he goes, you want to talk about awkward? President Eyring just staring at him. And he didn't say anything from that. He just goes, okay, you're good. Renewed. And that was it. That was like their whole interview. So I do believe what you're saying, like being able to look into the eyes of somebody and see that is the window to their soul. So I don't have that magic. I'd look at somebody and be like, oh yeah, you got green eyes, cool. That's about as far as it goes, but yeah, for sure. So I know, Terry, you have been through a little bit of this with your own kids and your ex as well, haven't you?
I have, yeah.
How have you combated that or dealt with the toxicity from?
So my situation is a tad bit different, only because my daughter was barely 3 years old and my son was 6 when we separated. And I always tried to make I was always trying to be an active parent role. But the thing is that I don't know how to explain it. So he would always say, so his work schedule was such where he would use that as a way of not picking up the kids. We didn't have a parenting plan in place. We just kind of went off of each other. And I was just like, well, you know, you can have them on these days if you're not working, and I can take them, you know, the rest of the time. So we just tried to work it out that way. He was just very combative with me on everything. And it would come to like Friday night, and he would go to pick up the kids and he wouldn't show up. Saturday morning, I would text him and be like, hey, what happened? You know, and he'd be like, oh, sorry, I worked late. And then Saturday, he'd be like, oh, I'll be there at noon, and he wouldn't show up. And so it was just kind of one of those things where I kind of had to be the buffer, the positive buffer to all of that. And when they would go with their dad, it was such a horrible experience for them that I would always try to ask them, hey, what fun stuff did you do with your dad? Because I wanted them to remember the fun. I didn't want them to concentrate on the bad. And so the first thing they would say was, well, Dad told us he doesn't want to hear about you or us talking about you. Well, the majority of the time they spent was with me. And so they felt shut down and not heard. So
did he actively kind of speak ill of you to them though?
All the time. And I never ever did. I always told my kids, I was like, you know what? And as they got older, it was a little bit easier to reason with them.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
That's okay. If you would prefer not to talk about it, that's okay too.
No, it's totally fine. I would always tell them that you can only love your dad for what he's capable of giving you. You can't have expectations with his love. And that's on you to accept that or not. That took a lot for me to say when I wanted to hurt him for hurting our kids, you know? So, yeah. Way to go, guys. You got me to cry.
I love it. I love seeing the emotion. I think it's honest.
But I think I also want to acknowledge that what you just shared, Terry and Josh, we're sensing that, you know, you're the bigger person. And it's hard to be the bigger person all the time, especially
It is.
And
yeah.
that is something to be embraced, and because it's a powerful trait to have, because at that point you're seeing facts, and facts sometimes, for the most part, helps, but at the same time it levels out the emotions that you have too, because you're holding on to something that you know that is true to you, to your values.
Right.
And so again, like being the bigger person, easier said than done, but you guys are doing it. So I just want to point that out, that, you know, that. And
I will say it's very, very important to have an outlet, somebody you can go to and talk to. And that was my mom. And she would never tell me, look, I'm not going to discredit what you're saying, but this is one-sided. And your opinion is one-sided, until she started seeing it. And then when she started seeing it, she was like, okay, this is not one-sided.
Right. Yeah. And that's actually one of the signs of like being in a toxic relationship, is it's all one-sided. You're never heard, and the other person, he or she, is always right. And so another thing is, it's draining. I think that's probably number one maybe sign that you can tell if you're in a toxic relationship, is there sometimes, you know, the word toxic lately has been casually used, but I think you can determine the consistency or how constant you feel drained when you're with that person, versus is it just a mismatch or a miscommunication of some sort, that we're not understanding, that we can sort things out. But if it's constantly draining your energy, physically, emotionally, mentally, then those are the signs definitely to watch out.
And I'm gonna say something else too. Honestly, I would not be where I'm at today if it was not for the therapy that my kids went through, and myself, and together. We went through therapy together, and we would not be the strong family bond that we have today without that. Like, my daughter's getting ready to graduate, and she got a text message from her dad, and he's like, hey, I'm not going to be at your graduation, but I'm really excited because I won't have to pay child support anymore. Who says that? You know what I
Oh
mean?
my gosh.
And what she said to him was, I'm really sorry you feel that way. I feel like when you tell me that, I've been nothing but a burden in your life.
Oh,
So I've given her the tools to be able to combat that.
mhm. Absolutely. And I'm a big fan of tools, like how to's, because
Right.
those are the things that we hold on to when crisis, you know, comes to our lives. And
Right.
being able to acknowledge the fact that you're able to provide that tool to your daughter because of therapy, because coaching, whatever, counseling, I think as a parent, there's a feeling that, okay, I'm doing my job, even though these things are really hard for all of us. Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
I'm a big supporter of therapy as well, just in general.
Mhm.
So,
So
anyways,
Yeah,
yeah,
it
go
was
ahead.
a struggle for me. I actually had some bad things with some counselors for a while back, like years ago. And then to go back was like almost like having PTSD going back to a counselor because of what happened previous. And I finally found one that is really good. He's been able to help me a lot in the last like 3-4 months since I've been with him.
yeah, you got to find a good therapist or counselor or coach, because there's a lot of not so good ones out there. So you got to keep trying to find one that matches and fits with your
Yeah.
personality.
I will say it took me 6 tries to find somebody that actually connected with my kids and myself. And it's not necessarily about the approach or the way that they deal with, you know, situations. It's just the way that they connect with you on a personal level. That's what I found, at least for myself.
Yeah, the marriage counselor we went for 2 months, and it just wasn't really good for me. And
Right.
it was basically our last session with her that my ex went and filed for divorce, like right after the session.
Mhm.
And so
So
I
what
think
you
there was a
guys,
lot of things beforehand going on because my girls knew we were getting divorced before I knew we were getting divorced.
so you guys went to 3 sessions and then that was it with your ex?
No, it was 2 months of like weekly sessions. It was like 9 or 10, I think, sessions. But yeah, she just wasn't a great counselor. There wasn't that connection. It was kind of one-sided, so to speak. And I asked, let's find another counselor. And that's the next week I got served divorce papers in front of my girls. So
Wow.
Yeah. It's
Yeah,
tough. Sorry, go ahead.
sorry.
No, go ahead.
My ex and I went through I think 2 years of counseling and parenting classes as well. And I broke off of that. I didn't go to the same counselor that we were seeing. I broke off of that and went to somebody else because I was like, I don't want that garbage and that baggage associated with that person. And so when I finally found the person I actually still use today, it's been amazing. So
It's tough because, and Christina, correct me if I'm wrong here. I feel like sort of step number 1 when you go to counseling is, okay, you're going to work on your issues. They're going to work on their issues, but you guys aren't here to fix each other, right? Like that cross kind of like, if I can take care of their issues, everything will be okay. Like that was a problem that I ran into with my ex, is that we went through 7 different counselors. Anytime a counselor would say like, okay, this is your work, this is his work, just do that. And she would say, no, that's not why we're here. If we can just fix him, everything will be okay. And the counselor's like, well, that's not how that works. That's not, and trust me, I got more issues than Sports Illustrated, right? Like I got things to work on in my life. That's just, I'm not perfect. So, but I feel like with somebody who is truly toxic, you're just not going to get to a spot with them that they're going to stop and reflect and say, okay, wait. So I'm contributing to these problems, and this is my part. And if I can just work on that, then I can do what I can do. Usually, correct me if I'm wrong, Christina, but toxic people just kind of don't see them. They see outward at the other person.
Yeah, there's a tunnel vision per se for toxic people because that's what they're used to. That's what they were allowed to do over a period of time. And that becomes, there's that codependency too if you're in that type of environment, because what this one person is showing, you're also like mirroring it. And so you're justifying. So if there's some kind of justification in a relationship, then if again if it's one-sided, then that determines like, is this unhealthy, toxic per se? And I think it's almost like it's all your fault. There's no accountability, which is huge for us to even acknowledge that we're accountable for certain things in, a contribution to a relationship. And so there's that perception of perfection, that there's never going to be anything wrong with me, it's always going to be you. And I think when you and it's I agree. You have to look for or find the right fit when you go through counseling, because sometimes people will say fix it, and I'm not a big fan of the word fix, just because that indicates that I'm so broken that I need to be put together, when
Yeah.
really it's two different personalities. I mean, you're talking about two strangers meeting, getting to know each other, and then putting them in one roof. And so what that personalities would look like without communication, with all the assumptions and the expectations, that could be very chaotic at some point. And so that's why as human beings, we hope that we learn to communicate over time. It's never going to be an overnight process as far as communications, but as far as relationship, to determine if it's unhealthy or not, I think both should be able to, or I don't want to word should, but allow both to express who they are without being judged. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think we've talked about it before, like, people's love languages change. And that's when you have to start communicating, hey, I like this more now than I did before, or I don't like this as much as I used to. And that was something I noticed like the last 2 years, like there wasn't the communication we'd had before. And it started to break down, and like it got into the finance side of it to where things were communicated, and then you go, where's this? And then all of a sudden it's like, well, I spent that. And I'm like, what'd you spend it on? There's those questions that pop up, and you're like, okay, what broke down that we need to fix? And sometimes people get crazy. Like I think Everett said it, that divorce is either caused by finances, sex, or what was the other one? There's like three major
In-laws.
causes.
In-laws and finances, those were the top three, I think.
Yeah. And so, we started down that path of, we had some communication barrier, and then it turned into the finances, and then it steamrolled into something else. And I think that's, kind of how you can see in retrospect, not at the time, but in hindsight, you can see those little flags going off and saying, okay, this could have changed. And not that I don't know if it would have made the whole difference, but
yeah. So, boy, I had a question in the comment totally like made me go. So, for my situation, I mean, I'm a huge proponent of counseling. I believe, if we're being honest for ourselves, like, for example, I used to go with my ex, and this wasn't necessarily counseling, but she was a recovering addict, and so we would go to like the church program for substance abuse and things like that, and it was great. It was like a 7-step program, kind of the church's version of AA. And I just remember sitting there going through the workbooks with her and everything else, going, you know what, even though this hasn't been something I've struggled with, there is stuff in here that certainly helps me and applies to me. And I feel like the same thing with counseling, whether you need it or not, everybody can benefit. Now, sometimes finding the right counselor is huge. In our situation, every time we would get to a counselor that would say, okay, here's your worksheet, bounce. I'm out. We're going to find somebody else. And so that's why we just kept going counselor to counselor to counselor. And it was just a disaster. It was never going to work. But I believe if we're being honest with ourselves and we're truly to a point where we're like, hey, I got things to fix because I am not perfect, then counseling can be a huge boon for any of us at any point. I mean, if we're being honest as well about the scriptures and the gospel, it's really just counseling on how to like bring our life into alignment with Christ and to fix the things that are not in alignment with what he would like, right? How do you fine tune your life to meet the gospel standards and do the things that are correct?
It's funny you say that, Everett. So when I got divorced and at the beginning of this year, I got a new calling as the Elders Quorum instructor. And all the talks that were assigned me basically for lessons have taught me a lot, because it was let God prevail. Look forward to the future with faith. Let God do the unimaginable in your life. And it's like, okay, I get it, Heavenly Father. You're speaking directly to me. And like, because I was doing those lessons, I read them like dozens of times. And then every single one of them, the plumbing broke. I cried at every single lesson, I swear. But it just helped me realize that I have to let those things in my life and let God prevail. And the moment that I started doing that, it's been so much easier on me, like mentally, because I was stressed. I was stressed out. I still have stress, of course, but just listening to those messages that Heavenly Father basically sent directly to me and said, here, now you got to teach on it, has made a world of difference. And it was perfect timing. Like, I was at a low point when I got that calling, and then all of a sudden it's like, okay, here you go. Here's how we're going to pull you out of that hole. I don't know if you saw a post I posted today on Facebook about a soldier in a hole. If you get a chance,
I'll go check it out.
I'll have to check it out. But it's sometimes we get in those holes and we just keep digging ourselves into a hole even further until somebody that's been through it jumps in and says, I'm here for you. I've been here before. We will get through this. And so,
yeah,
that's been kind of one of my, I guess, go-tos over the last 6-7 months is I try to find those things and find other people that needed that as well and help them. I've got one friend, I won't mention names, but she's on the LDS single site, and she's gone through 2 divorces, and she's had a lot going on, and she'll reach out and ask me questions or something. And it always seems like I'll find something like that inspirational quote and I'll send her, or somebody else that I've met, and they'll return and say, thank you. That's what I needed today. And so it's taught me really to listen to those little thoughts that Heavenly Father sends you, because I know I've had other people that have been my angels here to help me through some of those tough times. Somebody will reach out to me and send something, and it's exactly what I needed at that moment. So,
I've often wondered, like, because sometimes, I at least found myself wondering, Heavenly Father, why do I have to deal with all this, right? It seems like this never-ending battle, and I'm just like, what have I done, right, to have to deal with all this? But I think that there's validity in the fact that I think the Lord sometimes allows hardships into our life so that we can become a beacon for others. Like, we can reach out to others. I've been there. I've experienced this. I know what I did to survive. I can help you. I can share what I've learned with you. And I think that if we take these challenges and help them or help ourselves become stronger by them, then we're able to turn around and help others that are just in our same situation or similar situations. And then it becomes like this chain reaction where everyone's helping everyone, because life is a lot of the same experiences. They might be shifted a little bit, but the feelings that come along with it are pretty similar. And so we're able to help people that might find themselves in feeling similarly as we did at some point. And I just think it's wonderful how the Lord's created that. He's allowed us to have these hardships so that we can help others who have had those hardships. And it just kind of grows. We grow as being a teacher to help, and then they grow because we're helping them. And so it's just a grand plan,
Yeah, there was a quote the other day on Facebook that said some of life's greatest lessons are learned through pain.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that some of these pains that we've felt teach us some of the greatest lessons and actually help us change.
I agree 100%.
And it all starts with those little thoughts. I shared this with a friend the other day that, I remember a quote, and I can't remember if it was Ezra Taft Benson or Spencer W. Kimball, but they said, if you simply change your thoughts lead to actions, and your actions leads to words, and those change your character, those become your habit.
Yeah.
And so by that small and simple means, just change your thought process sometimes is what makes the world a difference. And I've had to learn that through pain to change my way of looking at things. And, instead of looking at the negative, look a little more positive. And it is exactly like you said, Celeste, that chain reaction. I've shared that with somebody else. They probably shared it with somebody else. And now that other person is helping somebody. And
I would say for me, sometimes too, just removing myself emotionally from the situation, taking a step back and assessing it from more of a logical standpoint, I'm able to see things so much clearer for myself that I'm like, oh gosh, you throw out that emotion and all of a sudden you just see this whole different perspective and you're like, this is not how I painted it in my head.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, change it goes along with what you just said, Josh. For the longest time on my mirror, because I tend to write things on my mirrors in my bathroom, in my bedroom, like whatever I need to read to like motivate me or to kind of make
and
me
bright red
better.
lipstick.
Not lipstick. I've got my little dry erase markers, but for a long time I had one that just said, change your thoughts and you'll change your world. And I just kept I would see it and I'd be like, okay, right. I don't need to feel like a victim today. When those negative thoughts come in, I'm going to try to change them. It's all cognitive behavioral therapy, right? Just, you got to try to learn how to process it differently. And it's amazing. On those days where I fought to change the thought, it did change the world around me. It was a better day. And so
I'll do that even now. Sometimes I'll have I'll wake up and I'm just feeling agitated, or I'm just like, oh, it's gonna be a terrible day. It's gonna be so bad. And then I'm driving to work and I'm like, this is gonna be a great day. I'm gonna have an awesome day. I'm not gonna do this. I'm not gonna do that. I'm gonna have fun. I'm gonna keep it lighthearted. And then sure enough, and at the end of the day, I was like, wow, it's amazing. It's amazing the games our mind plays with.
Yeah, it's powerful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had a quote on my wall at Walmart when I worked there that actually Sam Walton said. It says, don't dwell on the negative.
Yeah.
It's when we start dwelling on it that it eats at us, and then it snowballs and it creates more negative, etc. And Elder Bednar, I think, said it best. We choose to be offended. We choose to get angry. We choose to do all these things. So if we can simply change that one little thing, like you said, the thought, and choose not to be angry, then it can make a difference.
Go ahead.
I have something kind of funny. So when my kids were little, I used to tell them, my daughter's sitting on the couch right now, so she might Google at this. I used to tell them all the time, you can fight with each other, but you have to fight with each other in an accent. Nobody can get mad at you. She's laughing now. You can't get mad if you fight with each other in an accent. I'll tell you, they tried to be so mad at each other, and then they would throw these stupid accents, and then they would just end up laughing hysterically, and they would forget why they were mad at each other.
I am so going to do that.
I know. My daughter has all these different voices.
So funny.
And I always tell people, I'm like, they can't be mad at you if you say it in a British accent and with a smile.
Oh my gosh, I am so gonna do it, and I'm gonna come back and tell you how it goes. I don't know if no accents, but they are always fighting, so that would be.
It's great. One time I was so mad and I was just so frustrated. My kids were being so naughty and they were in the store. And I just started speaking. I don't even know what it was. It was really stupid. It was like a Chinese made up language. And be like, what the heck? But you know what? It made me feel better. That's all that matters.
That's so awesome.
So
I think that's one of the that's one of the secrets is you've got to learn how to laugh about things instead of getting all wound up. Like I know as a kid, I grew up in a very conservative family, and like I've learned to laugh at a lot of things. Like we've touched some really, taboo subjects, as we call them. And I grew up in that environment. Everything was taboo. And I'm like, you got to learn to laugh at like a fart joke or something, stupid. But growing up, that was unheard of to laugh at it. Like, so.
That's awesome. I just keep thinking that, oh, now I just lost what I was going to say. Oh, I don't know. Okay, move on. It's gone.
It was one of those blonde moments. I get those too, Celeste.
It was a blonde.
Hey.
It was something about the fighting and the accents, and I don't remember now.
You're supposed to say that, Josh, with an accent.
That's right.
Right.
I don't know how to do accents. All I know how to do is an accent with my Spanish. So
That'll work.
My Filipino accent right now, so I think I'm good. I'm better.
Christina's has it. She's
yeah.
I can switch it off and then off.
So the real question is, when these things are going on, right? Like for me, for example, with my kids, and when everything starts getting toxic from my ex, and I hear the feedback, right, from them, like, well, mommy said this or something, in that moment, it's extremely frustrating, right? Like there's a part of me that wants to just say, well, mommy's full of crap. Mommy is this, that, or the other. It's taken from time to time everything within me to just say, you know what, you might hear things like that from mom, but from me, the only thing you're ever going to hear is you need to love your mom, you need to respect your mom and do what she says and make sure that you take care of her. And that's it. There are times where I'm like, well, if you spit in her, cereal in the morning, I wouldn't mind too much, but I don't say that. It's tempting at times, but I don't say that. So how do you get from that point when it starts, right? Especially, Josh, your divorce is fairly fresh, right? I mean, you're talking going on a year now, next month. And it seems like in the beginning, that's the most difficult part. That's the part where things are heightened the most. And after a while, you'll kind of get into a groove, but it can take quite a while to get to a point where you're like, okay, I am not that person's enemy every day. So in the moment when a divorce is happening or a marriage is falling apart, Christina, what do you tell somebody to say, okay, I know it's very tempting to want to just fly off the handle, go off the deep end, say things you shouldn't. How do you keep somebody focused and make them understand that, look, we've got to do the long game here. It's about taking care of the kids.
So for me, my first question when I hear that, when somebody like maybe in a coaching session, I challenge it in a way that I ask the person, how true is it for you? How true X, Y, and Z? Kind of, you have to, there are certain things that, yes, you can validate and acknowledge, but there are also certain things that you would probably have to challenge to make the person think. And so asking them that question, how true is it for you that you are X, Y, and Z? And then it allows a person to think, because really, when you are starting to get to know yourself, when you're healing, when you're doing the work, then you would think, maybe not so much. That's not true for me. Maybe it's true for them, but not for me. And then that allows you to be grounded with your values, with your core values, and really get to the bottom of what your worth is. Because when a person is telling X, Y, and Z, but can be perceived as a lie, that really attacks your self-worth right there, like your self-confidence. And I'm like, am I really that person? Am I really selfish? Am I really a liar? And so then you can tap into your core values and say, nope, it's not as true. And so then you can formulate things to do, things to share with your kids, things to share with your future spouse, that okay, this might not be an ideal situation, but here's where I'm at. So if you are being true to yourself, if you know or starting to get to know yourself more, then you're able to answer that. And there's nothing wrong when you pause, you take a breather, and just think about it for a while, because then that allows you to really kind of like do a self-assessment of how true is it for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've asked questions like that, Christina. Instead of get mad or want to say something, I'll say, what do you think?
Right.
And why do you think that? When I was a Walmart manager, we played what's called the 5 whys.
Mm-hmm.
Why is this? Why is that? Why is this? And usually you could find the root cause of something, and then you could address the root cause rather than just the issue at hand.
Right.
And so I play the why game a lot, and I do it subconsciously, without even thinking about it, because of 16 years at Walmart. I had 400 employees in one store and probably that many in 7 or 8 stores. So having dealt with like 3,200 people, that's where I learned to read people
Right.
and
I
ask those
ask
questions.
questions. And I think asking open-ended question, I'm a very big fan of that. You don't want to, I mean, I steer clear, even in my HR, I'm HR for a nonprofit. It helps to get information when you ask them open-ended question instead of the yes or no, because then it allows people to explain. However, you kind of have to be ready when they start spitting out their thoughts, because it might be an information you're not ready or willing to accept, but that would give you a snippet or a picture of what they're actually thinking. And that's going to be beneficial for you on how you would react or what your next step would be.
Yeah, we actually use that in my work. We use open-ended questions to find out about manufacturers' pain points, and that's how we can, offer our services. Say, hey, well, we've got this that could help you with this that you talked about, or let's explain to me what's going on with this. And then they can't just say yes or no. It's okay. We start here with a process, and if they can explain that process, then they really know what they're talking about. But if they can't explain the process, then there's probably issues there.
Mm-hmm. Right. And that's the same thing with, relationships and communication. If we're able to share our authenticity, our vulnerability, our willingness to just be ourselves, I guess. And it's easier said than done. But if you're able to do that with such openness, that other person will definitely will have that space to open up with you as well. So I think, I mean, even in that, and it applies with our kids, with our partners, with our exes. Just because I learned how to ask my ex-husband open-ended questions, just because before I would be the kind of person like, hey, did you buy the tickets for Hero to fly over, blah blah blah. So if it's a yes or no, if it's a yes, great, I feel happy. But if it says no, then I would have some kind of resentment. And so now I would start asking, what would be the time frame, or what would be the date that I would have Hero by this time. And so if he then lays out a plan, then I would know I don't have to plan anything other than pick up my son at the airport. If not, then I can I can make that decision and work with him as to how we can share our son during like summertime or whatnot. So
Yeah. I've used the quote, knowledge is power, and the only way you're going to get knowledge is by asking questions. And, a yes, no question is not going to get you much. Those open-ended questions that help you explain more, and then you get key insights that maybe you wouldn't have got from, just the yes no question.
Right.
And I'm just gonna kind of, I know Christina said something similar, but I would always say stuff like, well, what's your thoughts on this? Or what is your plan? What's your ideas? Things like that, just to make him try to communicate a little bit more to me than just give the, well, if you see me, you see me kind of thing. And I'd be like, well, the kids are depending on you. So what is your plan? Ultimately, what's the plan by the end of the day? So I think that just those questions, even now in my life, I use it everywhere. If I need some clarity, I'll even ask my daughter. She'll leave and go with some friends. I'm like, what's your plan? What are you going to be doing? And I'm not asking her what she's up to. I'm just saying, give me the details you want me to know. Please give me enough to, comfort me and keep me at ease. So I find that those sentences and those words really do, it's mainly for me to comfort myself.
And I think this holds true in the dating space as well, in relationships. When you're trying to get to know somebody, would you rather be approached with a yes or no question, or would you rather be approached with, how was your day, or what was the best or least part of your day? Then the person starts to share. I bet Josh wouldn't be with his special girl right now had he asked yes or no questions. I bet there's that exchange of thoughts, that there's a communication. So I think it's a good practice when we learn how to ask those open-ended questions, for sure.
Yep.
All
So,
right.
Josh, at this point, like, you are sort of still a little bit locked in battle with your ex over the kids. So what is your next step? Where do you go from here? Obviously, this is going to be something that may, whether it's your ex that is the toxic person or the situation, how do you kind of move forward and not let that toxicity just sort of envelop you and become a part of you? And especially spill over into your next relationship.
Yeah. So, they've talked a lot about, you have to have self-care. You can't love somebody until you have that self-care. And so I've had to learn to do things for myself. And some of that is, I'm a very service-oriented person. And I learned this when I was young, actually, at an EFY conference. I had just started crushing on a girl, so to speak, and things didn't work out. And I went to this conference, and this guy talked about heartache and stuff. And he said, the best thing you can do when you have sorrow in your life is to serve others. And so I found ways to just go do service or help somebody else, that you never know when your day is minute compared to what their day probably has been. And so I've learned to just serve. I've done a number of things, like everyone knows they can call on me at whatever hour of the night if they need to. I've gone and rescued a buddy that had a four-wheeler stranded in the mountains, and he's like, I called you because I knew you would come. And or, hey, I got an elk down and I need to drag it out before 10 o'clock tomorrow morning because I got these meetings and stuff I have to be to. And everything always happens to come together last minute. And I'm like, sure, it's just another adventure, I call it, when things like that happen. And so service has been something that has been my go-to to help me just realize, it doesn't matter what's going to happen with the court, doesn't matter. I'm just going to continue living the best life I can. And I think that has helped change my mindset in the last few months. And then having somebody that I can talk to, one-on-one really goes a long way. She's got her own stories with her divorce, and it's been really weird because everything's so natural. Like, there's no awkwardness when we talk. There's no nothing that we haven't talked about. Like, it's just like what we're talking about now. It's really easy. It's not something that is awkward, and it's very comforting. So
I have to ask you a question. So when you first met your ex in the beginning, were there toxic traits that you saw from the beginning or from early on in your marriage? Was there anything that just kind of stands out to you now that you look back and you're like, this makes sense, this unfolded because now that makes sense to now?
I don't think there was really any big red flags. So here's an interesting thing. I grew up with my ex's cousins. So some of my best friends are her cousins. And I kind of knew the family. And so I felt very comfortable around that family. But her family was from Colorado, and most of her cousins were in Idaho. So they grew up in total different cultures. It's like Utah and the whole taboo and the cultural commandments and stuff. She didn't have that. And so I think as the years progressed, things started to come out. And looking back, yeah, there were some red flags probably in those first 5 years. But a lot of those things, everyone goes through some pain points as they're first married, and we worked through them. But the last 2 years of that marriage was when all the red flags started to pop up. And there was a lot of heartache too, because I lost nearly all my grandparents in those last 4 years. She lost a sister and a grandparent. And so there was a lot of emotional roller coasters for those last 4 to 5 years of marriage. I had 3 surgeries. I had back surgery, 2 hernia surgeries. And so there was a lot of that can put some stress on a marriage and a family and financial and other things. So
I remember for me, I asked this question because what is the thing that they say when you're married and you get to 7 years? They say it's like a 7-year itch, right? And I remember thinking, oh gosh, if I make it to 7 years and it gets any worse than this, I'm going to jump off a bridge. Like, I just remember thinking that, like, I just was like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And I remember at one point in time, I woke up one morning and it was really, really early. And I went into the bathroom and I just caught a glimpse of myself. And I remember thinking, what are you doing? What are you doing? And it just, from that moment forward, I was like, nope, I'm standing up for myself. No more. Yeah. And it just, I was just curious because I chose not to see them at the time, but I actually saw many, many of the red flags. He cheated on me 3 months before we got married. So,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah, I think when it comes to any type of toxic relationship, whether it be like a, marriage or your dating relationship or with a friend or coworker or whatever, I think it's so super important to put up safe boundaries to protect yourself. And I know sometimes people can make you feel like you're being mean or you're like just not loving or whatever because you put yourself in a safer place, because it does distance you from them. But I think it's so important because you can't get sucked into the toxicity because it'll like ruin you. It'll drag you down, even if it's not you that has the challenge. And so I think it's really important, like you were just saying, Terry, like you just put yourself in a safer place. You put up your boundaries. You said, no, I'm not going to deal with that. I'm going to do things differently. And I think that's a huge step when dealing with anybody that has.
And it does help. And I will say, I mean, I had the proper tools as well to kind of help guide me in that direction. And even to this day, like, I mean, we all deal with toxic situations or, relationships, whether it's our immediate family, whether it's, friends or, people that we just interact with on a daily basis. It could be coworkers even. It's really, for our mental sanity and our mental health, it's really, really important just to be able to establish those healthy boundaries and just be like, you know what? That's your problem. It's not mine.
Right. And that's not showing a lack of love, because that was always drilled into my head that I was not being loving. If I'm like, dude, that's really your issue and I'm not going to get in a part of that. And so, but that's not true. I've come to realize that's not me showing a lack of love. It's me loving myself enough not to get mixed into something that is just going to drag me down. So.
And it's also caring for them and just saying, look, you know what, you need to address what your actual issue is. And I'm going to be there for you when you figure it out.
Yep.
Well, and after my divorce, I had a lot of people come up and say, you know, we saw red flags. And I think that's where the saying comes, love is blind, because I didn't see them at first. But, you know, looking back, yeah, those were red flags. And
can't stand that when people say that, because you're like, why didn't you tell me sooner? Why didn't you say anything about this?
Well, and
do you even believe them if they said something, right? Sometimes you're just like, okay, yeah, but that's not a big issue, right?
Yeah.
But when you have 4 or more people tell you the same thing, you're like, yeah, there was, and maybe I need to listen a little more. And
I remember a question that my kids had asked me one time, and they're like, were you ever sorry that you met Dad? And I was like, never, because I wouldn't be here today if it was not for that experience.
Yeah.
I'm grateful for that.
Right. Never want to relive it, but grateful for what you learned.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone we meet in this life has a reason, a season, or a purpose. I think we've seen those quotes on one of the sites recently. And I really believe that. Like, there's people that I've met that my best friend, I've been best friends since we were 3 years old. I just turned 42. So that's 39 years we've known each other. And he's the one that's probably pulled me through the most. And he lived a far ways, and he lost his job, and he ended up moving within 40 minutes of me for another job. So
Lord's looking out for you.
Have you ever, there's a quote, I don't know if you guys have ever studied much from Orson Whitney, but he is one of my favorite kind of old time apostles, and the things that he said, just always deep and profound. But I want to share this quote with you because it goes along the lines of what you were saying, Josh. He says, no pain that we suffer, no trial that we experience is wasted. It ministers to our education, to the development of such qualities as patience, faith, fortitude, and humility. All that we suffer and all that we endure, especially when we endure it patiently, builds up our characters, purifies our hearts, expands our souls, and makes us more tender and charitable, more worthy to be called the children of God. And it is through sorrow and suffering, toil and tribulation, that we gain the education that we come here to acquire, and which will make us more like our Father and Mother in heaven. I love that. And sometimes for myself, I have to revert back to that, because the hardest thing to do is when you're in the eye of the storm of a toxic relationship is to keep that focus, right? So especially like right after a divorce, if they've just taken the kids away from you, if they've just done something and you're like, ooh, that just makes me so frustrated. I can't believe that they would do that. And there are people, especially in these situations, that will deliberately do things to hurt us, right? And maybe sometimes we are the ones, whether deliberately or indeliberately, is that a word?
It
is now, right?
this grammar from Texas.
Yeah. But sometimes we are the person that is hurting the other person. And we're doing it for our own kind of like, well, you hurt me and now I'm going to hurt you type thing.
Yeah.
It is difficult for me. The one thing that helped is just trying to keep my focus on the long game, right? So I remember my ex, and when we first got divorced, when my kids were really little, and all of these things were being said and being done, and I'm just thinking, this sucks. And it was really frustrating. But then kind of through prayer and everything, it's like I got this answer that's like, you just need to stay focused on the long game. Right now, it hurts. Right now, it's tough. Right now, it feels completely unfair. But they're your children forever. They will always be with you. There will come the majority of their life where they are grown and adults, and they will be in a completely different situation than you are in now. Right now feels like eternity, but it's not. And it's so, so hard to keep that focus and continue to do what's right and not talk ill about that other parent or be toxic ourselves when we feel like we're wronged.
Yeah. And we got to do the basic things. Like the one thing that I think I struggled with COVID mostly was going to church. And I would go, I grudgingly, I guess would be a good word to say. And there was one Sunday that I was so upset I didn't go. And from that moment, I'm like, okay, I just had this pit in my stomach, like, you are going down the wrong path and you better correct it now. And I haven't missed since. But I think, like you said, we go through those pains to learn those lessons that, hey, I think it was Elder Uchtdorf said that it doesn't matter what you're doing, what sins you've committed, continue going to church, continue trying to pray, continue doing things. And I love what Elder Bednar shared recently. He says, if you can be a little better today than you were yesterday and a little better tomorrow than you were today, it is enough.
Yeah.
And I think that also my favorite quote from Tony Robbins is when he said that pain is inevitable, but suffering is optional. Uh, we are going to get hurt regardless of our environment. We will hurt people. But if you notice, for so far, what Josh, Celeste, Terry, Everett, probably in the audience as well, is that you are choosing to not suffer. You are choosing for yourself because you know better. And better doesn't necessarily mean always the good guy,
Yeah.
but you are making that constant decision to do what's good for you. So just, even the smallest yes or no, setting your boundaries, that means that you're claiming your power to choose. So it's your free agency, you're choosing that in such a powerful way that you're choosing to move forward regardless of what the situation was.
Yeah, and it's always tougher to do the right than, just go with the wrong, because that's usually the easier route.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's always the harder route's always usually the best route to take, right? Versus the easier route. So I've got one question I'm going to ask, and I know we're about to open it up to the audience to see if they have comments or questions. But so tell me, Josh, as you're in this new relationship and you're still dealing with the toxic relationship prior, how is it that you've managed to kind of separate the two and not allow the bitterness or the fear or even just like the lack of trust to kind of flow into the second relationship? What is it you're doing to be able to balance that? Because I know sometimes people have a hard time struggling to trust the next person or to open up to them or whatever because of what they've experienced in their last relationship.
Wow. So, yeah, trust is everything to me. I grew up with a grandfather that's kind of like John Wayne, that, everything was done on a handshake. Everything was your word. And I've literally had to pour my soul out to Heavenly Father and just say, you know what? I need your help. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know how I'm going to overcome this barrier or whatever it is. And that whole talk, let God prevail, like, just changed me totally. Like, I've had to just say, okay, I'm putting this in your hands. I know you have a plan. I don't know what that plan is, but help me just go where I need to go. I don't know. And it's been surreal almost with this relationship. Like, things have just been very natural, very easygoing. We've already got lots of plans for the summer. She's met my parents already. She's met my kids. I've met her kids. Like, it's just everything. It's comfortable. I've even met her ex. And so it's just, Heavenly Father has a time and a purpose, and I'm just letting him handle the rest, and I won't worry about it anymore. Like, I've worried myself to almost having ulcers and other things, and I'm like, it's not worth it. It just isn't. And so really it's put the trust in the Lord and not necessarily in somebody else. And when you trust him, things will just come together.
Absolutely. What we would like to do at this point is open it up to the audience. If anybody has any questions they would like to ask either to Josh or anybody else on the panel, or Christina, especially because she's the one who's actually licensed and trained and knows what the heck she's talking about. The rest of us are just armchair quarterbacks.
Opinions, yeah.
Although we question what she eats. Holy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. She might have a weird diet, but we love her all the same. So in the meantime, the question that I have is, you've met her parents, you've met her ex. I'm assuming that there's kind of a good communicable relationship going on there with her ex. It's not like real toxic. It wasn't a meeting like he came running out of the house and you guys like had fisticuffs or something like that, right?
No, so it's interesting that we actually have mutual friends. One of them was his cousin, grew up with me and went to high school with me. And so we already had some connections, and I think it just made it really easy. I think it shocked the heck out of her when we met because it was just really natural. It wasn't a problem. So it's just another one of those God's hand in everything.
Yeah. Now, has your ex caught wind of your relationship?
I'm pretty sure she knows. My girls know that we're dating.
Okay.
Don't know what they've said to her, but she's got her own life. It doesn't matter. She can't make those decisions for me anymore. So.
Well, the reason I ask is sometimes that can send the other person into a bit of a tizzy. Like for my ex, for example, when she finds out I'm in a relationship, it's just off the wall. Like, just move on with your life, be happy. I want that for you because when you're happy, that's good for our kids. But it's never reciprocated. So just wanted to see if you felt that from your ex and the antipathy that comes with being in a new relationship.
In a little bit in different ways. But like I said, we'll figure it out. I'm not going to let it eat at me. Again, that whole don't dwell on the negative. You got to just move on. So.
Right. Okay. So Celeste, who was first here?
We have David first.
Okay. Great.
Come on, David. Come on aboard. You can turn on.
Oh, rats.
There you are. Hi, David.
Hey, Joshua. So I've seen you in the groups, and you seem like such a positive, just happy person. And just with everything that you described tonight, what's kind of your mindset? What's helped you to be that person with everything that's happened?
Well, I think it's going to have to go back to probably just my testimony. Like I learned to love unconditionally on my mission. I served in Puerto Rico, and I remember talking about Ammon in the MTC with the trainers and stuff, and how Ammon was an into missionary. He knew their cultures. He knew the processes. So when he went to King Lamoni and asked to be his servant, he knew and he loved those people so much, he was willing to just serve them. And I think when I was on my mission, I learned that lesson right off the bat. And it helped me so much, like in my mission. And the mission was like the training center for life, I call it. You just learn those hard lessons in 2 years that you could go to college for 20 years and probably not learn all those other lessons. So just having that testimony and leaning on that testimony, but also when you waver, having those strong friends that are there to back you up. Like I've stayed on the podcast, after hours, and talked to Everett about a couple of things, and having those, resources. So that's why I've become kind of that resource for other people. And you heal yourself by helping others to heal too.
Right.
Amen.
I love it. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, David. Okay, let's see. We had a couple more hands here. Who was next?
I saw
It
Monica.
looked like Monica.
was up.
Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, Monica.
Hey, you hear me? Okay.
Yep. Oh, she's not in bed. All right, great.
I'm
Good
not
to hear
in
this
bed.
time.
Imagine
Right.
that. I know. It's amazing.
Right.
I'm still working.
Right. So I was wondering if like we could just talk about a little bit more about like unconditional love, because I feel like that's something that can be really misunderstood by people sometimes, of what it means to love someone unconditionally. So especially in the context of toxic relationships, like there are times where it's not going to be fixed, right? Like nothing you could have done would have changed the situation, where cutting off a relationship is better than trying to continue it in any form for you and for your mental health, where that person really needs to like take care of their own stuff, but like you can still love them. So I just was wondering like what people's thoughts were on like what unconditional love means, like in a healthy sort of setting, especially when you're dealing with people where you can't, or for whatever reason, like continue those relationships, because I think that's tricky for people, right?
Yeah, I think sometimes people think unconditional love means you have to stay there and endure whatever it is that they have to offer in your life. And I don't agree with that. I don't buy into that. I think that you can easily love someone from a distance, behind a safe boundary. You can pray for them. You can put their name in the temple. You can be supportive as long as it's within your boundary to be safe. They might not view it as that. They might view that you're not loving them, but you can surely love them as much as you can, as much as possible from a safe distance. I just don't want people to assume that unconditional love means you have to be in the mix. You have to be right up in their life trying to help them manage the chaos or whatever they've got going on, because that's not what unconditional love is. That, in my opinion, I think that you can love them wholeheartedly for who they are and want what's best for them and continue to pray for them and all of those things while being outside the toxic circle that they might create. So that's my opinion.
Yeah. Monica, something that I've thought about as I've gone through this, like unconditional love is that Christ-like love. Like when the Savior had the woman that was, brought, that had been caught in adultery 7 times. And he said, "Ye that are without sin, cast the first stone." We've got to learn to have that kind of thought process, basically. How can I judge them when I've probably done that? Or what is the recent one in conference that says, "Don't judge me because I sin differently"? Like learning to just accept people that have a past. We've all got a past, right? We've all done things that are wrong, but do we dwell on those things? Just like dwelling on the negative, don't dwell on the past, dwell on what the future can be and change that. I think if you can have that Christ-like love, that's the unconditional love that you've got to just show. And it takes a while to get there and understand how to do that. And I can tell you, like, I told my parents this a while back, that I understand what our Heavenly Father felt when he had to turn away when Christ was on the cross, because I have felt that as I've seen my children suffer. I can't turn away. It's a great love that you have for your children, no matter what the situation. And I think that's what we're talking about, is that kind of unconditional love.
Yeah, I agree. I really like that, especially because I feel like I've seen in a lot of the groups lately, and I know Terry has probably seen some of this stuff as well, but like where people kind of come in and they say either they have like that an unhealthy view of unconditional love and forgiveness as being kind of like meaning you have to keep engaging, or you have you have to make yourself vulnerable to somebody, which isn't true. But or the converse, where they're like, well, God actually doesn't love us unconditionally, and they'll point to scriptures or quotes of prophets saying like, oh, like God loves those who like do what he asks. And I was like, I actually don't think that's true. Like, I think Christ-like love is unconditional. And I think there's a difference between loving someone unconditionally and boundaries, and like having expectations for boundaries of how you relate to them in your own relationship. And so I thought that was also kind of interesting too. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that, but every once in a while when one of those things pops up, where people are like, well, God actually doesn't love us unconditionally. And I'm like, I don't know. It rubs me the wrong way, you know?
I think sometimes also it's just a matter of where they're at that moment and their perspective. And like, I can read a scripture and you can read a scripture and we're both going to take something different off of it, right? But I think it really tells us where we are at as individuals and as people. And loving unconditionally, like Celeste, I totally agree with what she said. And I'm going to expand on it. It does not come with expectations or conditions or anything like that. You love, and if that person is disrespecting your boundaries, you put up a barrier and you're just like, I still love you, but you can't treat me this way. And I'm going to set this boundary up because I love myself as well. And being able to do that is a very healthy, hard thing to do, especially if it's immediate family. But, I think it's totally acceptable.
I agree with Terry. So along those lines, I mean, sometimes we get this notion that to unconditionally love somebody means to, like you were saying, Monica, still engage and still be there and keep going. But the only person, and I would argue with anybody in the group that says Heavenly Father doesn't love us unconditionally, the only person who truly loves us unconditionally is Heavenly Father, or at least maybe the purest form of unconditional love. And even he, at times, will say, this is not functioning correctly. We need to step back and we need to take a break, whether that's through like an excommunication or something of that nature. But he will at times say, we need to sort of sever things. I want you to come back. I never want you to leave me, but we have to kind of separate what's going on here because it's not working or something is broken and we need to like separate. If we can fix it, that's ideal. But if not, that's a sad thing. So
but the door is always open for that person to come back.
Right.
Absolutely.
Choose to.
But he doesn't stay engaged and just say, well, just keep doing what you're doing and we're just going to keep going down this path. There comes a point where he breaks it and says, enough, let's hopefully fix this and come back, but right now.
And I will say too, another thing that people sometimes they confuse enabling with unconditional love. And there's such a difference.
Codependency and
you cannot enable somebody and have that be love. That's not love. That's it's just not.
I think for me too is we all have different definitions of what unconditional love means to us personally. But I think when the buts and the ifs, and if you start justifying things for that person more often, then you kind of want to rethink if that's truly an unconditional love, because then you're just overextending yourself for that person, and then it becomes that one-sided situation. So I think you have to know what, number one, love is for you, and then what unconditional love for you, if that's something that truly matters to you and truly believe. Because we can be sharing about unconditional love, and if that's something that maybe someone doesn't believe into, that love, whatever their background is, that there's no such thing as unconditional love, then that's not gonna resonate with them. So
All right, great topic, Monica, bringing that up. It was awesome. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Monica. So I don't see any other hands, and we are right at time today, so this is just perfect. Josh, I know some of your struggles that you got going on right now, and I love you, man. I feel for you, and I want you to know that we're here. Definitely a support group. Christina's got her hearts up. She's ready to go. And things are going to get better with time. It sounds like Heavenly Father's already got you on a good path and a good track, but he will never remove all of the bumps in our lives. And I am a firm believer that Heavenly Father rarely, if ever, removes us from the trial, Rather, he usually sees us through the trial. Even though we're always asking, like, take this from me, like, get it out of here. Like, I don't want to go through this. Usually he's like, we can get through this together.
Yeah.
And that's where the strength comes from. So
Yeah. One of my favorite poems is Footprints, where it talks about when you're going through trials and the footprints in the sand, that's when he carries you the most. And I truly believe that. Like, I have had some real lows and I've felt the Savior carry me through those.
absolutely. Yep. He will be the strength for us when we feel like we don't have any more strength.
Yep.
And, you know, it's times like these, in these moments, where I often take a little bit of moment to reflect back on the Savior and think, when he suffered in the garden for us, he felt this, and this hurt so bad, but I know there are other people that are hurting just as bad. And to think of him taking all of that on in that moment, I can't possibly imagine how that must have felt. I mean, I don't think it is comprehensible to mortal minds of what he went through. So him feeling those pains and knowing for me that he didn't just look at this and say, okay, well, I'm going to observe and I can sympathize with everybody's going through, but he actually felt it and he can empathize, which is so much more powerful. And he can say, I'm there with you. I've been there. Like your post today, he jumped in the hole because he'd been there before, right?
Yep.
He has felt what I felt, and all of these things, if I lay it at his feet, none of it is beyond him to help see us through. So
Yeah.
With that, I want to say thank you for coming on. You have been an awesome guest, and you're an awesome supporter of our show, and we love having you every time. This is the part of the show where we usually stop the Facebook feed and